D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Derek and I are live at Chiefs at 200 Broadway. Downtown bar owners, by the way, are jumping for joy after Kentucky survived Missouri to open day 2 of the SEC tournament up the street at Bridgestone Arena. Why not? Let's start with an SEC tournament scoreboard update, which is driven by Toyota. Be listening for updates throughout the day. Toyota, let's go places. As I just mentioned, Kentucky defeats Missouri 78-72. Kentucky moves on to take on top-seeded Florida tomorrow. And in the second game of the day, Auburn leads Tennessee 20-16 with roughly 6 minutes remaining in the first half. A huge game for Auburn, which is squarely on the bubble. Willie Donick is live in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, where the Predators' road trip continues tonight against the Canucks. Puck drop at 9, pregame at 8, right here on 102.5 The Game. And Willie, I know that you are champing at the bit to give us a March Madness conference tournament score update. So please take it away.
Can we hear Willie?
Do we have Willie?
We have him, but we can't hear him.
We'll get Willie back.
Yeah.
We will get Willie back. We cannot hear Willie. It's breaking his heart that he can't tell us about all of the scores happening around the NCAA. But again, Auburn 20, Tennessee 16 with under 6 minutes remaining in the first half. Now it's 23-16 Auburn. The winner of this game, by the way, will advance to take on Vanderbilt tomorrow afternoon at Bridgestone Arena.
Can I throw a conspiracy theory out there?
Oh, please.
Because, everyone knows I love them. What if, I've always thought this and think about it more now, because Auburn is sort of teetering, and they need a game like this to sort of put them over the edge. Do you think the SEC would collude and say, you know what, UT, y'all know y'all in. Y'all know y'all pretty much a 4 or 5 seed. It's better if we get another team in, and Auburn ends up winning. Not to say they have to win the SEC championship.
So what you're suggesting?
Hey, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm a conspiracy theorist.
The SEC is hoping Auburn will win this game.
Exactly.
Because Tennessee is a lock to make the tournament, and
Absolutely.
Auburn is not. Now we have Willie Donick. Willie, is there any credence to Derek's conspiracy theory?
Well, I think Derek is right to bring it up because it is going to be a huge game for Auburn. I think Auburn, especially with some developments today that we're going to get to, I think you can make the case Auburn has to win this game. Nick Ament is playing for Tennessee. Auburn leads 23-18, 4:52 to go in the first. Ament has 7 points. But Auburn at 17-15 and the toughest schedule, or one of the toughest schedules in the nation, I think probably needs this, and they need it more because the biggest game that happened earlier today in terms of teams on the bubble like Auburn is that Miami of Ohio lost for the first time this year. They lost to the 8th seed in the MAC quarterfinals. Miami O was 31-0, but they gave up 50 in the second half and lost 87-83. And that brings up a very spicy topic that I'm going to come back to in a moment, guys, because maybe this could fuel Derek's conspiracy theory. So hear me out here in just a minute. So let's buzz through a couple other key scores from today. You mentioned Kentucky, able to survive and advance, 2 wins in a row. They beat Missouri today, a team that beat them at Rupp Arena earlier this year. Otega Oweh with 21 points, and they withstood Mark Mitchell with 32 for Missouri. Missouri is going to be fine. They're going to be in the tournament. But now Kentucky gets a third shot at Florida. So tomorrow, it's shaping up. The first 2 games, Kentucky, Florida, that place is going to be packed with blue mist. And then maybe Tennessee, Vanderbilt. But if not, it's Auburn, Vanderbilt. And there'll be a great crowd for that early session. Ohio State, in a key matchup in the Big Ten tournament, got a big win over Iowa, 72-69. So Ohio State creeping up. They should be good now. For a while, they were squarely on the bubble for weeks, but they've played well down the stretch. They should be all right. We mentioned Miami O goes down. What happens to them? We'll see. I think they're still going to get in. Virginia beat NC State in the ACC tournament 81-74. St. John's handles Providence easily 85-72. Iowa State continues to crush teams in the Big 12. They are looking really good. Another easy win over a ranked team today, Texas Tech 75-53. Some scores in progress right now. Arizona thumping another ex-Duke legend, Johnny Dawkins and UCF, 46-30 at halftime. So Arizona flexing. They'll be a 1 seed for sure. Wisconsin leading Washington easily, 69-52. At halftime in the ACC tournament, Louisville 38, Miami 37. Now back to Miami of Ohio, not Miami, Florida. You guys remember that Bruce Pearl on TNT earlier had some really some critical things, I would say, about
inflammatory.
Ohio. Inflammatory, good word, better word.
Ding.
Yeah, ding it. And it really downplaying the success story that Miami O has been. And now that they've lost, and you've got Auburn on the bubble, there's a lot of people that thought, hey, Bruce Pearl's trying to stick up for Stephen Pearl because his case was basically Auburn is better than Miami. And this is a classic age-old argument that you hear, right? That the major teams, they play a tougher schedule and they're just flat out better than the mid-major teams, which I think has been debunked to a degree because we would all agree in all college sports, the gap between the high major teams and the mid-major teams has lessened a lot. But with Miami losing, you guys sent the tweet from Jeff Goodman. He says, how about this in the first 4 in Dayton, Ohio? How about Miami of Ohio against Auburn for a chance to get in, for the field of 68, those first 4? Wouldn't that be spicy?
Absolutely. And I would love it. And the selection committee, as I mentioned to TSU coach Nolan Smith yesterday, the selection committee loves those storylines baked into those first weekend matchups. So I could absolutely see a scenario where Auburn takes on Miami, Ohio, which would be great theater for people who love college basketball. By the way, all of our SEC men's basketball tournament coverage is presented by Thompson Machinery, City Auto of Murfreesboro, Maple Street Biscuit Company, Crown Royal, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, and the Metro Nashville Police Department. Now, Derek, Willie, David, patrons here at Chiefs on Broadway, let's bow our heads for a moment, okay?
Yes.
All right.
Ladies, gentlemen, diehards, casuals, we gather here today to honor the memory of the Flaming Thumbtack. Born April 13th, 1999, deceased March 12th, 2026. To many, it was a source of pride. To some, a source of ridicule. But although it is no longer with us, it will live on in our thoughts and in our hearts. You represented football in Nashville, and your legacy will endure through the ages as throwback jersey companies cash in on nostalgia. Derek Mason, you are dressed up. You are headed to the Titans uniform reveal tonight at the Pinnacle up the street here. You had some very harsh comments about the Titans' decision to pivot toward the lighter Houston Oilers-esque blue, removing the Navy. Mostly, we'll see. We'll see the uniform tonight. We've seen that stupid teaser with the light blue jersey with the Navy tri-star for weeks. And now, well, stupid might be strong, but we've seen enough of it.
Yes.
Let's see the real thing. Here's what I want to know from you, Derek Mason. You haven't seen the uniform yet.
No.
But now that we are a few weeks removed from your initial reaction, has your stance softened at all?
And when I made that proclamation or stance, I did say I reserved the right to, change my mind if indeed the navy, dark, whatever you want to call it, blue, I call it Titan two-tone blue. If it's still in the sort of color scheme, then I can take back those words, which I said. But if not, then listen, I will love the jersey regardless. I just think that if indeed you go away from that navy blue, and don't make the navy blue an outline or a shadow or sort of this background. If you're going to make it a part of the jersey, make it a part of the jersey, because when you unveiled those jerseys, you unveiled it as the two-tone blue. And we went to the Super Bowl in that jersey, that specific jersey. We went to the Super Bowl in two-tone blue. So if indeed they go completely away from it, or if they use it as sort of a backdrop, or not necessarily a backdrop, because then if it was a backdrop, it'd be more of a dominant color, but as an outline. If they use it more as an outline, I'd be disappointed. But again, it's like anything that you sort of attach to or you grow up with. It changes. It doesn't mean that you don't like it anymore. Or you don't love it. It just means that maybe you're not fully on board with all the changes that are made. But if it's what the organization wants, which it more than likely is, then I'm all for it, man. Now they have to start, just like we did the two-tone blue. We went to the Super Bowl in that jersey. Then, damn it, they better get to the Super Bowl in this new jersey that they're in.
Willie, earlier today, I sent both of you a video clip from News 2 of the Titans jersey reveal from 1999. And talk about blast from the past.
Oh, my goodness.
Craig Hendrick, Blaine Bishop, Frank Wycheck, and Eddie George.
Yeah, Anthony Dorsett was on there, but they were just interviewing him.
They were the models.
Yes.
This was my favorite part, Willie and Derek, and I'm not even sure if you're allowed to say this anymore. Mike Hill, the WKRN anchor at the time, who went on to ESPN and other places, referred to Eddie George as quote-unquote ghetto fabulous.
Yes, you can't
during the clip. And I said, can you even say that anymore?
You're not saying that anymore. No.
Well, I just did, but I was just quoting what Mike Hill said. But just a blast from the past, looking back at the initial Titans jersey reveal. It appeared it was on the banks of the Cumberland River. Yes. And seeing what downtown Nashville looked like in 1999 is a shock to the system. But I hope you both got a kick out of that video the way that I did earlier today.
Yeah, it's such a fun time to look back on. And it was such a turnaround. And it still wasn't full force. Like I still feel like the team didn't really, I think, come across to the market of Nashville as a big time, like NFL. Like, this is the NFL. I remember George Plaster used to say all the time, people, this is the NFL. And these were during the years when, first it was the last year in Houston where we thought they were, we were pretty sure they were coming to Tennessee. Then they went to Memphis and then to Vanderbilt. But that was a long stretch of time. And it just didn't really feel real until they switched the name. And even on that day of the video you sent, that was a big moment, but until you got into the stadium, because the stadium was still getting finished up at that time. And that first preseason game, Mace, that's when I feel like it really felt like, okay, this is what we've been waiting for. This is big time.
Yeah, watching that, it was sort of nostalgic.
I was looking for you, Derek.
I wasn't even out there, period. Just watching it, it's looking at a young Blaine Bishop and Frank Wycheck. It really Frank, man. You just you start to think other things when you start to see Frankie's face, because he's no longer with us. But a young Frankie, energetic Eddie. Hendrick. It was just, and you look back on it, you like, man, this city and those individuals and us as a team, man, we've grown so much. And you're right when Plaid saying that, it's true, man. When you have an NFL team, you have arrived, so to speak. Why do you think this city has grown so much so quickly? It's because the two teams on opposite sides of the Cumberland, the Tennessee Titans and the Nashville Predators. So, but just watching that, it made me laugh a little bit. But we did those jerseys justice. I believe we did.
Here's my question, Willie. should the Titans have waited to do this? Remember when they revealed the jerseys they're about to replace in 2018, if my memory serves. They had a huge blowout here on Broadway. I know that you can't do that right now because of the SEC tournament, but the Titans are doing this at the Pinnacle, which is a really cool venue, but it's a small venue. It holds around 4,500 people. I wonder if the Titans would have been better served waiting even a week once the SEC tournament leaves town, maybe before the Predators get back in town from this road trip, and do it on Broadway like they did last time. It just feels like it's not as much of a big deal as they did last time. I'm wondering from a marketing standpoint if they should have waited.
Yeah, I don't think they really, and this is, I think, the league as a whole most of the time, I don't think they worry about what else is going on around them. They're like, hey, this is the NFL. When we do something that's big, I think what you're saying has some merit. I don't think it's great timing, but I was even thinking maybe do it earlier before March Madness really gets going in full. That could have been worthy of doing it, but it is what it is.
I mean, I can understand them. I can understand why they want to do it now, or if they chose to do it a little bit later because of the weather. You want people to be able to come out to it. I know it's not outside, but still, you want people to want to come out when it's good weather to support the team. So, whether they did it on a different day or today as they are doing it, I think it was going to garner attention no matter what.
615-737-1025. By the way, it is halftime at Bridgestone Arena. Auburn leads Tennessee 32-25. The winner of this game will face Vanderbilt tomorrow afternoon. Auburn 32, Tennessee 25 at halftime in the second game of day 2 of the SEC tournament. By the way, I forgot to mention, full show today. Paul Kuharsky will join us at 4 to break down Titans free agency. Sportsnet NHL insider Elliotte Friedman will hop on at 5 to talk Predators with us. And our very own Joe Rexrode will join us at 5:20 to discuss the SEC tournament and March Madness. But if you want to eulogize the Flaming Thumbtack, 615-737-1025. I think I did it justice, but if you think you can do it better, call or text 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Right Time HVAC and Cromwell Media are teaming up to bring comfort back to your home. Is your heating system struggling or completely out of commission following the winter storms, or do you need a fix to get you ready for summer? Nominate yourself for the Right Time Home Rescue and tell us your story. Enter today at thegamenashville.com/HVAC, and you could win a new HVAC system installed by Right Time HVAC. Locally owned and operated, there's never a wrong time to call Right Time.
depending on how you want to define it, the Patriots got 8 starters from free agency last year. 8.
Yep.
And you can microwave a franchise now. And if I'm circling somebody who's that this year, it'd be Tennessee, where they go out and they get. And by the way, it wasn't like, with the exception of Stephon Diggs, these were not famous players that the Patriots were getting. Milt Williams, we knew was a stud, but we didn't know he was going to be that good. But it's like Robert Spillane. It's Mac Hollins. Guys who can just go out and give you competent snaps. And when I look at this Tennessee mini rebuild, I'm seeing Jonathan Franklin Myers, who's at the top of the heap, who's awesome. And again, you want to talk about how important pass rush up the middle is. Franklin Myers can give you that. But then Cordell Flott, Alontae Taylor, Daniel Bellinger, who can give you a bunch of confident snaps. Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be a volume shooter at wide receiver. I wish they could have added Alec Pierce, but that obviously wasn't in the cards. He doesn't even reach free agency. It just felt like there's a lot, and I don't know how you feel about the Titans, but there's a lot of earmarks. So, like, it feels like they're this year's Patriots just in the sense that there's professional coaching where there wasn't last year, same as Gerard Mayo and Mike Vrabel, a bunch of terrible players being replaced by competence, and then Cam Ward, who got really comfortable in the pocket towards the end of the year, was using his legs better, didn't look like the game was too fast for him ever, but certainly understood it the last few weeks of the season. I'm a little concerned about the shoulder there because he hurt it in the last game of the season diving into the end zone. But it just feels like if anybody's going to be this year's New England, it's going to be Tennessee.
That was Kevin Clark of ESPN. A lot of praise for what the Tennessee Titans have done so far in free agency. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, Derek and I are live at Chiefs at 200 Broadway, downtown. Come and see us. The SEC men's tournament continues. Auburn leads Tennessee 32-25 at halftime. The winner will face Vanderbilt tomorrow afternoon, a 2:30 p.m. Central tip-off at Bridgestone Arena. So, guys, a couple of weeks ago, we were at Brewhouse South when DraftKings Sportsbook unveiled its initial over-under win totals for next season in the NFL. And I remember us all being a bit surprised by the Titans getting 6.5. That's the Titans over-under for wins in Vegas, at least according to DraftKings Sportsbook. 6.5 wins. And the picture is incomplete. The draft is still roughly a month away. We don't know who the Titans are going to draft. We don't know what other moves they could make. But free agency, the first wave of free agency is over. You heard Kevin Clark mention the New England Patriots. We saw what they did last year. They spent a boatload in free agency, and it helped them reach the Super Bowl. By the way, none of us are going out on that limb to say that the Tennessee Titans are going to reach the Super Bowl this year. Of course not. But, Derek, this is what I want to know. Mm-hmm. Are the Titans closer to their over-under win total of 6.5 after free agency?
See, this is where it gets sort of tricky. And you can get your hopes up sometimes too high, or you can underappreciate what your team is doing. I fall in the middle with the Titans with the moves that they made in free agency and via trade. And how much better is this going to make this team? I look at the defense first. This team was giving up 28 points per game. That is unbelievable. They were giving up 28 points per game. So they go out and they signed John Franklin Myers. They signed them, a few DBs, Taylor and Flott. They signed some guys today through free agency. So to me, what they're doing is they're trying to repair a defense first that frankly didn't play up to standards as far as points per game, if you're just going to look at that. So I look at this team and I'm like, the moves that they made, they're good moves. There's no home run moves, unless you want to call John Franklin Myers sort of a home run move. But I don't think there was any home run moves. I think there were base hits. I would call John Franklin Myers a double. So they got a bunch. They got a few, singles and a double. But where does that put this team in regards to the other teams in AFC South too. So how much better is this team going to be? Even with the moves that they made, I think they are, to me, still a 6, 7, maybe 8-win team. If things fall right for them, they may find themselves in the playoffs. But I'm not going to get too high on this team, nor am I going to not appreciate the moves that they made, because they addressed some of the issues that they were having, mainly on defense.
Willie, I like the word that Kevin Clark used in that clip, competent. The Tennessee Titans had a lot of players playing last season that, frankly, probably weren't NFL players. A lot of it was out of necessity because of injuries, but I look at the corners that the Titans added, for example, Cordell Flott and Alontae Taylor. And I am more familiar with Alontae Taylor as he is a former member of the New Orleans Saints. And Alontae Taylor is not a perfect player. If my memory serves, he allowed either 7 or 8 touchdowns as the nearest defender in coverage last season. That's one of the highest totals in the NFL.
You know what his cover rate was? Completion rate, it was 68%.
That's bad.
That's bad. That's not good.
That's bad. But he is an NFL starting corner, which the Titans really didn't have too many of last season. So I think on the defensive side of the ball, on paper, they are better. I do think John Franklin Myers is an improvement over Tavondre Sweat. I think Myers and Simmons have an opportunity to be the best interior duo in the NFL. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't know. There are questions on offense, but let me ask you the same question as Derek. Do you think they are any closer to their projected win total based on what they've done so far?
Well, yeah, for sure. But that's really not the end game. I think reasonably they should win more games this year. But I was really surprised at the optimism of the clip that we just played there. Mm-hmm. Last year's Patriots being thrown around there, and it's a microwave league. You can flip it quick. I'm not believing that's where the Titans are right now. I mean, you're talking about all the differences on defense. There's still some hope involved. There's some projection involved. You're playing an entirely different scheme. And so you're flipping a lot of personnel just based on trying to fit what type of defense you're going to play. So, for example, the corners, that's really going to be hinging on how well they can get after the quarterback, right? That there's so much that being able to rush the passer has an effect on how good your corners look. But it should be better, right? This is how the league is designed. You should be able to go from two straight 3-win seasons. You should be able to get to 6 or 7 or 8 wins. I don't want to say easily, but you should be progressing that way. But that's a far cry from last year's Patriots.
There are a lot of questions on the offensive side of the ball. The offensive line is incomplete, and we'll talk more about that, at the top of the hour with Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com. There is skepticism about the wide receiver group and whether Wan'Dale Robinson can continue his ascension. He had a breakout year last year. Can he continue that here in Nashville? Calvin Ridley is still on the team. Who knows if he will be at the start of the season, but he is still on the team. You hope for another step forward for Chimdike and Elegayamaner. Chigakonkwo, say what you will about him. He was the Titans' leading receiver last season. Gunnar Helm showed promise in his rookie season. Is he ready to take on a bigger role? The running backs are the same. Again, there are still a lot of questions. But I do think, particularly on defense, I would love to be able to quantify this. Mm-hmm. Do I think the moves the Titans have made so far on the defensive side of the ball can pick them up an extra win this season? I think that's reasonable, but again, that would just be 4 wins. The picture is incomplete, but I do think the Titans have made incremental progress so far in free agency.
I think if anything is going to, if you're going to believe in anything, believe in what they're doing with the defense. Because and I'm only basing this on Saleh's track record as a defensive minded or defensive coordinator. Whether he was with the Jets, San Francisco, back to San Francisco, he always commanded a top defense when he was healthy. And it shouldn't be any different here. If you're judging it by the players that he went and got, guys that were in the defense before, guys that are still playing well, guys that are young but ascending in their mind. So we're going to play this aggressive style defense. So I think if you're going to believe in anything, believe that the defense will take a step forward. And not to say that the offense will not, but I found in this league, when you have situations like this, because whether you look at the New England Patriots or the Houston Texans or any other team in the last couple of years Washington that have went from worst basically to first or playoff spot, their defense helped them the bulk of the way, whether it be through turnovers or just stopping individuals. So if you're going to lean on anything, I think lean and trust in that what he's doing from a defensive standpoint. The offense may take a little bit to really get going, but I think the defense should hit the ground running.
Let's go to Brad on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Brad, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the two-tone blue. I'm kind of with Derek. When they got here to Nashville and they unveiled the new jerseys, that really, it paid homage to the old Oilers colors because it had it as an accent, but it truly was a new era, and it was a new scheme, and the Titans were Nashville's team, and they really bought into the Greek mythology part of it. And you see it all over the stadium and all of the different things. And I guess I'm excited about tonight, but I'm also worried because, if they do go almost all the way back to the Oilers colors and they take all of the mythology out of it except for the name, then they're really kind of taking and pushing back against Nashville a little bit. I mean, I still hope we look at these as the Tennessee Titans and not, get close to the Tennessee Toilers. I mean, it's just kind of weird for me. So I'm with Derek. I hope that they keep something in there where we can still look at it and save the two-tone blue, because as someone who's 5 years old today, 10 years from now, someone calls it the two-tone blue and he looks at the uniform and goes, "What are you talking about?" I just feel like that's a myth.
Thank you for the call, Brad. And I do think, Derek, quickly, one thing that the Titans are doing, and Easton Freeze of A2C Sports has done a really great job reporting on all of the uniform changes and color changes and logo, all of that stuff. We'll see it tonight. In one of his reports, he mentioned that the word Titans, that's been right underneath the collar of the uniform, is now going to say Tennessee. So I'm sure there's going to be something that says Titans somewhere on the uniform, I would assume. But the name Titans, which has been right here on the collarbone, is going to say Tennessee from now on.
I think it's more of a encompassing the whole state of Tennessee rather than in their mind just the city of Nashville.
But remember earlier this season when we talked about the fact that one of the Titans games was not being broadcast in Memphis and Knoxville and Chattanooga. So Willie and Derek, you both tell me, because you've been here a lot longer than I have, the Titans are not Tennessee's team. People from Memphis, people from Knoxville, people from Chattanooga, if you're listening, you can call 615-737-1025. But I've never gotten the sense that the Titans are Tennessee's football team.
Well, remember why that is. That they made it Tennessee originally because there was state money being given to build the stadium. And so in exchange for that, I think that's part of the reason why they're the Tennessee Titans and not the Nashville Titans. And also, I think it was their hope that they could, by naming themselves Tennessee, be more of a regional team. A team like Denver, of course, they don't have to call them the Colorado Broncos to have a regional following, but they have a huge regional following, right? There's some teams that have a national following, like the Cowboys. So I'm not sure if that was the right idea, but as it's evolved, I think the hope it hasn't really come to fruition after a generation. Because I agree with you, I don't feel as much connection with fans, especially in Memphis. Right? There's always been sort of a divide between Nashville fans and Memphis fans.
615-737-1025 will continue to take your thoughts on the Titans uniform reveal tonight. I also want your answer to this question at 615-737-1025. Are the Titans closer to their over-under win total of 6.5 after free agency? And if so, how much? 615-737-1025. Second half is underway up the road. Auburn 39, Tennessee 31, 17:06 remaining in the second half. A big one on the bubble for the NCAA tournament. Auburn looking to punch its ticket. I think if the Tigers win this game, I think they should be in. The winner of this game takes on Vanderbilt tomorrow. 615-737-1025. Derek and I are live at Chiefs on Broadway. Willie is in Vancouver, and David Janes is back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service.
Is Derek Mason. If you've injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose with calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. But Law Tigers fights to get you the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. Look, they understand how much your bike is worth to you, so they will help you get it all repaired or better yet replaced. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Freeman and Houston, and you can find them in Nashville, located at 2126 21st Street South. And don't forget, go to predatorsbike.com to enter to win a custom Nashville Predator Indian motorcycle signed by the entire team, courtesy of Law Tigers in Music City, Indiana. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Derek and I are live at Chiefs on Broadway at the intersection of 2nd Avenue and Broadway. So come on down and hang out with us. Auburn 41, Tennessee 35, 5:19 remaining in the second half. Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com will join us at the top of the hour. Let's go to our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com, and welcome in Jared in Spring Hill. Jared, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon, gentlemen. I was down there yesterday at the SEC tournament. It's a great infrastructure we got. I really hope it doesn't go anywhere because it's such a fun environment to take a little kid to. And Derek, I do like how you're referencing to the free agent signings of that. There's a bunch of singles. Maybe a double or two are in the mix. And I definitely do agree. It does feel like we got some solid guys, but not like stud guys. So, Derek, as somebody who's been in the pros, like, what are we as fans? What are these moves telling the fan base? And to backpack on that kind of question, is Borgonzi really going to risk his future on a running back in the 4th round? Or is he going to take his chances on a defensive guy because there's still a couple of glaring holes there? So, man, hey, love the show. Love what y'all do. Man, y'all be blessed.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you, Jared. I think what they're trying to do is, with the free agent moves that they made, one, they're trying to get guys that are familiar with the culture that they're trying to build and also with the system that they're trying to run, whether either on offense or defense. Because when you're incorporating a new system, you want to have people in there that know something about it, that are able to be an example or that are able to help some of these young players kind of, catch on to it, whatnot, and show them, whether it be the culture, show them how things are supposed to be or should be, or through play. This is what we need to do. And these are sort of the nuances within the offense, because again, I was told a long time ago by Mike, the late Mike Heimerdinger. He said, listen, man, we're going to draw it up the way we draw it up, but you got to know the nuances of the offense, and you just got to be a football player. So bringing these veteran guys, they're able to show the young guys the nuances of the offense, but then also how to go about being a pro. Because Jeffrey Simmons said this during the season. He said the culture needs to be changed. They need to get back to that winning culture. And the only way you can do that is if you bring guys that were a part of a vision that you had that at one point worked. And you can say what you want to say about Saleh and Dabo as far as their head coaching jobs, but I think both of them, with their respective teams, did the best that they could do with the talent that they had. I can go over both situations here and it'll take all day, but as far as what I think the organization is telling you, I think they're telling you they want to win, and they want to win very quickly. And while these young guys are starting to develop, they want to make sure they have some older guys in there that can help them along the way.
Matthew from Jolton says, I expect the Titans are actually going to be watchable this season. Last year, 90% of the season was unwatchable, and it sucked to have to use the Titans for my assignments in college. Matthew mentioned that he had to make a sports cast about a team. You picked the wrong one, Matthew. You should get extra credit for having to watch the Titans for school.
When, this year?
Yes, this past year.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry about that, man.
Craig says, watch the Titans pull a fast one and trot out those red jerseys they were supposed to wear on Christmas Day all those years ago. I am not familiar with those jerseys.
No, they would never wear. Those things will never be worn in a game by Titans. It was these, they were red and blue. Was it navy blue?
I don't remember these jerseys, Willie.
They were red
they
and
sold
navy
a lot
blue.
Of them. They did sell a lot of them back then, and it was basically the exact Titans model with the two-tone blue, but they just put red behind it. And man, I can vividly remember that Christmas game. A lot of people wearing those. But
I just pulled up
in the game.
I just pulled up an Eddie George version of that jersey on eBay, which you can buy now for $49.
I'm glad they never wore that. I'm glad that jersey never seen the day of light.
This is bad. This is a bad jersey, folks. I'm glad they never wore that in the game.
No.
Good.
No, they never wore that in the game. I'm happy.
Man. And I used to be, Willie and Derek, I used to be an avid collector of alternate jerseys. When I bought jerseys, I loved buying alternate jerseys. I remember having, I believe it was an all-red Atlanta Falcons Michael Vick jersey, which I don't think the Falcons ever wore. I used to love alternate jerseys, but man, that Titans red, ugh, no thank you. Pass. One texter says Roger McCreary had a better rating than both of the guys they signed for $40 million. Meaning Flott and Taylor.
Yeah. Again, I think some of it was, honestly just getting, past former, draft picks that wasn't their draft picks. Because McQuarrie, I thought he was a solid player. I thought he could be he could be a slot guy if that's what you wanted him to play. He could be the slot guy, but again, he didn't, fit where they were going or where they want to go as a team or as an organization. I'm not sure if it had to do with him fitting the culture, because McQuarrie, he came in and did his job and didn't make a fuss. I just think from a play standpoint, he didn't fit what they wanted to do.
One texter says, Coach here. And I don't know if his name is Coach or if he is a coach, because I know people who go by Coach who aren't necessarily coaches. Coach here, I saw a clip of Cam Ward throwing, and his footwork is still trash. Now, I'm not a footwork stickler. I think it's less important nowadays, but people would condemn Will Levis for much better footwork. I don't get why people are so quick to dismiss one and believe in the other. Willie Donick, your thoughts?
I do think this is going to be something to watch with Cam for a long time. I don't know. I don't even know if Cam is actually throwing yet. Is he?
I believe there was a video on Instagram or something of him starting to throw.
Okay, so this is legit. Because this was, I just haven't seen it, but regardless, I think the footwork, and not just the footwork, but the footwork coupled with the delivery. We talked so much last year about the high heaters, or just the sidearm, the arm slots. I equate it myself with pitching. I know it's not the same thing, but when you can repeat your delivery and when you can be consistent with how you deliver the passes you throw, you're going to be more accurate. And I think there's a lot of room for improvement in that area. And I think he needs to improve if he's going to be the quarterback that he wants to be. But the one thing that gives me a lot of hope is everybody to a man loves his work ethic. He loves the process. He is dedicated to the craft. And I hope that will manifest itself in improvement.
Yeah, he played well during the second half of the season. I think he started to clean up some of those things that he was having trouble with early on. He started to read it a little bit better. They made things a little bit more cleaner for him as far as his reads, and they allow him to, grow in such a way where I don't think the pressure was on him to go out there and win games, even though that's what he wanted to do. The thing was, let's just develop you. Let's make sure we get better every game. It doesn't necessarily have to equate to a win. We would like for it to, but as long as you're seeing things a lot better, as long as the game looked cleaner to you, that's all that truly matters, because this team wasn't going nowhere no time soon anyway last year. You were just hoping that the quarterback, which he started to figure some things out. Now, as far as the video that is out, footwork, I hadn't seen it, so I can't comment based upon it. I'm glad he is throwing now. So hopefully he's on pace to be ready for camp.
And I think Robert Saleh used the line on Cam Ward, sometimes I need him to be Clark Kent, not always Superman. Be Superman when absolutely necessary. Otherwise, be Clark Kent, which I also believe that Robert Saleh used to talk about Zach Wilson. So we'll see if that actually works out.
But I ain't never seen Clark Kent. Clark Kent really didn't save nobody.
I'm not a big. This may come as a shock to both of you. I am not a huge superhero guy.
Gosh, you're not?
No, I'm not.
You know the story. I think you know enough of the story.
Yes, I know the lore of Superman.
Yeah, but I would put it. I think it's variation of what Brian Callahan used to say is sometimes you have to be really good at the boring stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The basic fundamental plays that have to be made when a guy's open, you have to make the play. It may be that, just that 8-yard hitch. You got to get really good at those things. And so I think that's what I'm hearing when I hear that, not to have to make the heroic play all the time. Be really good at making the plays, taking what the defense is giving you. And that's another, I think, product, hopefully, of just being a student of the game. And Cam Ward, I think, hopefully will follow that path. And that's where he's going to find a lot of improvement. I think the best thing you could say about him is that, coupled with the word survival. He survived the gasoline fire that was last year. And I don't know if everybody would have done it, right? I think there would have been many, many rookie quarterbacks who were faced with that would not have lasted the 16 games, or really the 7, got injured on the 17th. But I think that's the best thing you could say about it.
615-737-1025. Auburn at the free throw line. 46-39 Auburn versus Tennessee. 13:02 remaining in the second half. 46-39 Auburn, 13:02 left in the second half. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com will join us. We'll talk to him about what the Titans have done in free agency so far, what they could do. We'll even ask him about the uniform reveal because Kuharsky seems like the kind of guy who loves a jersey reveal. So we'll talk about that with him too. 615-737-1025. By the way, all of our coverage of the Tennessee Titans offseason is presented by Tennessee Brewworks Finely Tuned Craft Beer for finely tuned fans. Tennessee Brewworks, official craft beer of offseason coverage right here on 1025 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Derek and I are live at Chiefs at 200 Broadway. And speaking of Chiefs, let's go to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com and welcome in our friend Paul Kuharsky from PaulKuharsky.com. Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm great, guys. How you doing?
We're doing well. You seem like the kind of guy, Paul, who loves a jersey reveal. I'm sure you're excited for the event tonight.
Listen, I am not a big uniform guy. We've discussed this. I follow a team that hasn't changed its uniform like ever.
That is
People are
very true.
fascinated. People are fascinated by it, and I am interested in people reading my work. So I'm into that part.
I hear that. So let's talk about the players who are going to be wearing the new uniforms next season. A lot of Titans fans, Paul, are wondering about the plan for the offensive line, specifically at center. How do they plan to address that position other than signing Austin Schlottman?
We don't know for sure. They wanted a veteran, and the veteran pool dried up very quickly. They wanted a veteran who's better than Austin Schlottman. But Connor McGovern re-signed. Biadasz signed before he even hit the market, or the Titans before the Titans got a look at the full market. A couple guys disappeared lightning quick, and Linderbaum got enormous money. And so they're left here where maybe they draft a guy, maybe they found a lower tier guy, maybe Jackson Slater's in the mix. I wrote today, Jackson Slater's the kind of guy this team ultimately wants to be judged by. It may be adding 1 billion free agents right now, but both Robert Saleh and Mike Borgonzi have talked about, third-day draft picks, and those being the guys that really tell you about your ability to build a roster. And Slater is one of those guys, so we'll see. But they definitely need one more veteran, at least for center or right guard. That could be Kevin Zeitler. Could be somebody else, and there's still some guys out there.
Paul, you've written about this recently at your site, but for those who haven't seen it, there are Titans fans, I'm sure, who are wondering why L'Jarius Sneed is still on this roster. Can you explain the financial implications of why Sneed has not been released yet?
Well, the first thing I'll say is Floyd Reese was a big proponent of this. You never make a roster move before you have to. Now, the Titans would need 3 new guys to fall down the stairs and break their necks, but you never know what's going to happen. I think they're delaying a delicate conversation, or what's delicate for them. He needs to take a physical. I don't know if he has or hasn't yet. It'd be very good for them for him to be healthy, because he's got $7.5 million that are guaranteed for injury on Monday. So they're the intricacies of all of those things. But it doesn't cost them a penny in any way, shape, or form until Monday. So this decision likely becomes public on Sunday. Same with Calvin Ridley, who I'm thinking is going to stay, but he's got $1 million that guarantees on Monday. And so these things are triggered on the 5th day of the league year for a reason. And people who are like, oh my God, I can't believe L'Jarius Sneed is still on the roster. Like, did I have a game coming up that I don't know about?
No, you're absolutely right. So they don't have to make any decisions too fast on L'Jarius Sneed. But we see sort of kind of where this is going with the cornerbacks, that he will ultimately be the odd man out. Now, going back to center, Paul, because you said something that Floyd told you, where you don't cut a guy until you have to. Did they have to cut Cushenberry? Was there money involved, or was it just an injury deal with him?
I think it was a combination of how he was playing now and his propensity to get hurt, plus the money. But I do think, Derek, if they decided Lloyd Cushenberry couldn't play anymore, it doesn't mean he's a better alternative than finding something else going forward. You decide a guy can't play, well, you got to go find the next guy. Now that they haven't yet found the next guy, doesn't mean, well, they should have kept the guy they think couldn't play. And it's easy to say that while you're looking at the blank on the depth chart, but they've got to solve it. Now, they've added so much. They've got much more flesh on this depth chart now. What do they have to have? Well, they still have to have a rush end. They still have to have a center, and they still have to have a right guard. But they could field a football team right now outside of those three spots, and they could address those three spots conceivably in the draft. It's going to be a veteran.
We're talking about Paul Kuharsky. You catch him on his website, paulkuharsky.com. Now, Paul, with the moves that they've made, do you think now going into the draft that they would be leaning more toward offense rather than defense and leaning on Robert Saleh's expertise of getting the defense to play without having sort of that elite pass rusher? I know he had Bosa in San Francisco, but when Bosa was out, that defense still played extremely well. So do you think from that aspect that they would lean more on his expertise in the on the defensive side of the ball and choose to go offense?
I mean, I can't pretend to have any insight into the building, but I've got a projected depth chart up at my site that everybody could look at. I got to get it into 3 columns now since they've got so many people. But I keep plugging in these defensive linemen that they've added: Jordan Elliott, Solomon Thomas, Malik Herring. And none of them are really slotting at that smaller rush, defensive end, wide 9 kind of guy. You know, I've got Jalen Harrell there. I've got Allie Gay there. I mean, those guys shouldn't make the roster anymore. Maybe Harrell. That spot's a huge blank spot. And the 3 guys in this draft, they aren't perfect, but they all fit there. Maybe Bain a little less so. I don't think you'd put Bain at a 9, but you could put him at a 7. But certainly David Bailey fits there. Certainly Arvell Reese fits there. And that just feels bigger to me than Jeremiah Love, unless you think Jeremiah Love is such a better running back than these guys are pass rushers.
Do you, by them not choosing to re-sign Okonkwo, do you believe they have that much faith in Gunnar Helm and Bellinger to come in and be a good 1-2 punch? Because Bellinger's not a receiving tight end. We know that, but he's there for the blocking purposes. Do you believe they have that much faith in Gunnar Helm?
I think he will catch more. I think Bellinger will catch more too. And I think Derek, like when Chig was on the field, you know, 2 tight ends is coming back in vogue, right? Mm-hmm. But when the Titans were in 2 tight end with Chig, it wasn't getting people out of nickel. Mm-hmm. And now they can put 2 tight ends on the field and definitely get people back into more of a base look. And that lets them do what they want to do against that base look. I think that's a big factor in the direction that they went there. And the run blocking is certainly superior if it's going to be Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears or whoever they bring in to go with Pollard. I mean, if it's Jeremiah Love or somebody lesser, all of those guys will benefit from Bellinger. So they're making a trade-off, certainly. You'd like to see him get better at receiver so that guy could take Chig's catches and maybe give you that run after catch.
Paul Kuharsky is with us. So, Paul, just take that a little bit further because I think a lot of people, and myself included, we're trying to learn a little bit more about Bellinger's game because he's not a guy that you would have on your fantasy team, which is our reference point outside of the Titans sometimes, especially in the other conference. But the utilization of him, you're saying that his size and his blocking ability is a big upgrade in their evaluation as opposed to Chig?
Well, I mean, I don't like to rely on PFF as its own thing, but, you know, sometimes it's a good supporting document. And at PFF, Chig scored like in the low 20s as a run blocker, and Bellinger was in the 60s. So you're getting 3 times a better run blocker in Daniel Bellinger. And he's, 3 inches and 18 pounds bigger. It's just a much bigger handful. Also, you know, we haven't talked a lot. We've really gotten off the offensive line. Now we're getting back to center and right guard. But as a helper in line for Dan Moore and for J.C. Latham, a significant upgrade. You know, Chig just isn't built for that. He did the best he could there. Helm was there. Helm can do less of that now and go be more of a pass target. And Bellinger will be the primary dirty work guy at that job. So definitely a big help to the run game. But like I said, he'll miss those Chig yards after the catch. The thing is, he wasn't as consistent with it. Part him, part game planning, as you would have liked. So he wasn't wide check. He wasn't Delaney Walker. So if you're going to have one of those guys go all the way, if you got half of one of those guys, I don't know. I wasn't uncomfortable with them making that move.
So, Paul, I'm when it comes to the Titans salary cap, I'm like the household that, is spending the money and just in your mind thinking, yeah, I think our budget's all right. And then sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. But is it your sense that they have the budget to keep both Pollard and Ridley if they want to?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, if you're cutting Snead, you're getting, double-digit relief, I think. And, these numbers, a lot of the hits have been bigger hits are in the second year next year. They've got some extending to do for Skoronski in particular. Simmons will probably have a new contract. But I think they're fine. People too much see the 99 million or whatever it was, and then see these contract totals and think, "Whoa, this is really adding up." Those first year numbers are not that bad. I'll write eventually about the totals, but those things are only dripping in now. Not everything is in, but they're fine. But they're not going to spend every drop, and they've got a draft class that needs to be accounted for in that. And then, there's always contingency money later.
Last one for me. The more you see the day-to-day doings on the defensive side, it's almost unrecognizable outside of Jeffrey Simmons, the Delaney Walker defense. It's a very different scheme that they're doing, and they're moving on all of the personnel. Do you think the net result will be better in your mind as we sit here now?
Well, I don't see how the pass rush isn't better, starting with Simmons and John Franklin Myers side by side, and they've got an ability to roll people through. This is going to be like the Jim Washburn defensive line in terms of guys being asked to come off the field after 3, 4, 5 snaps, let another guy come in, take 3 snaps before you come back. But Jermaine Johnson, Jeffrey Simmons, John Franklin Myers as your first 3 there while you're still looking for that speedier end, the rush end, so to speak. That's a pretty good 3-pack. And we go back a couple of years to when they were healthy up front with Bud Dupree, Harold Landry, Jeffrey Simmons, and Danico Autry. And then we're getting to the quarterback with 4, and good things were happening. So Titans can get back to that, and they'll be set. And that's what Robert Saleh does, is gets the quarterback with 4. Get to the quarterback with 4. These cornerbacks sound a lot better than what they had, but they'll have to cover for a lot less time. Hopefully be getting the ball back for Cam Ward, and now they can spend more draft capital, hopefully, on receiver, on offensive line, on some offensive pieces.
Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com has been our guest on D-Mace, Vingan and Donick. Of course, you can always hear Paul on with Robbie and Rex Road on Wednesday mornings. Paul, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the jersey reveal tonight, and we'll catch up soon.
Stay tuned tonight. I'm sure to have lots of pretty art on the site.
You know where to find it, paulkuharsky.com. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Willie, we've got a situation brewing down the street or up the street at Bridgestone Arena. Tennessee has surged back into the lead, 56-51, with 5.5 minutes left in the second half at Bridgestone Arena. Auburn leading for most of the game, but Tennessee now up 5, timeout Auburn, 5.5 minutes left. Nate Ament, who returned to the lineup today for the Vols, 20 points. So we could be 5.5 minutes away, Willie, from a Tennessee Vanderbilt round 3 tomorrow at Bridgestone Arena.
It is quite the drama unfolding here. Auburn, if you're a fan of Auburn, you're probably thinking,
hold on to your butts.
What the heck just happened? Yeah, they're going to be sweating it out if they don't pull this out. But Auburn seemed to be in full control of this with 10:26 to go. They were up by 10. They were up 51-41 with 10:26 left, and they haven't scored since.
So that's a 15-0 run by my math for the Tennessee Volunteers. They lead 56-51 with 5.5 minutes left. up the street at Bridgestone Arena. By the way, our SEC tournament scoreboard updates are driven by Toyota. Be listening for updates throughout the day. Toyota, let's go places. Let's stick on the SEC tournament coming up because, as I just said, the winner of this game, which Tennessee leads by 5, with 5.5 minutes left, will take on the Vanderbilt Commodores tomorrow afternoon at Bridgestone Arena. So let's focus on the Commodores as they prepare for the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament starting next week. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
4.
Basketball, give me the ball because I'm gonna dunk it!
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. That always makes me laugh. It is that time of the year. We're mad because it's March. Tennessee leads 60-51 against Auburn with 3:56 remaining at Bridgestone Arena. If Tennessee holds on, the Vols will take on the Commodores tomorrow afternoon. By the way, I do need to be careful about what I say over the air because right before we went to break, when we were giving you the score update for Tennessee-Auburn, I said to Auburn fans, hold on to your butts. And then within minutes, I received a video from my wife of my son in the backseat of the car saying, Daddy just said, hold on to your butts.
Well, hold on to your butts.
Well, Arlo, hold on to your butt, pal. So I do have to be aware of that.
And thank you for listening.
And thank you for listening.
And Arlo.
Yes. Shout out.
Not blowing
Arlo.
on his dad. Just say, hey, Dad, he's working. I don't care. He'll get home later. We'll deal with him at that point. But
yes.
Listen to the show. I love it.
I do appreciate that. As I have shared, there was a point when Arlo listened to the show and he said, Daddy is bad and Derek is bad and Willie is good. No context, but that's what he said. So thanks for listening, bud. Tennessee leads.
I filed that away, by the way. I still got that filed away. It makes me feel good.
So if y'all's kids are listening and just said, hold on to your butts, I sincerely apologize. Father of the year over here. But let's look ahead to tomorrow. Vanderbilt opens the SEC tournament against the winner of the game going on right now. Auburn just scored to make it 61-54 Tennessee with under 4 minutes left. We could get round 3 of Tennessee versus Vanderbilt. Both teams won on the road this season. Tennessee won at Memorial Gym. Vanderbilt just won in Knoxville to close out the regular season. And you guys tell me, I don't want to say it's a foregone conclusion that the Commodores will be a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. Maybe a 4, depending on how the Commodores perform in the SEC tournament. But I feel like a 5 seed is more or less a certainty for the Commodores in the NCAA tournament. So I'm not sure exactly how much they can improve their seeding in this tournament. I mean, if they win it, that would certainly help. But my question to you, Willie Donick, as the Commodores prepare to play tomorrow, I want to know what you need to see from your alma mater in this SEC tournament to feel better about the Commodores heading into the NCAA tournament starting next week.
Well, first off, I would say I feel really good about the season they've had. I don't know what your expectation was before the season started, but if you'd have told me that they would be, 24-7, 11-7 in the league, I would have not asked any questions. I would have said, sign me up.
I would certainly say that Vanderbilt exceeded my expectations this season. But of course, you do have to keep in mind that after a 16-0 start, they finished the regular season 8-7. Injuries were a part of that, of course. But that's part of my reasoning here. They have won 3. They have won 3 of 4, including a road win in Knoxville, which is not a small deal. But I do think that after such a hot start, they have cooled off somewhat.
Yeah, they cooled off. I don't know if even when they were 16-0, I thought they were probably overachieving some. Remember, there was a really good, I don't know if it was good. If you're a Vanderbilt fan, you probably got a little angry. But your favorite guy, Hansbrough, Tyler Hansbrough had his podcast going. And after Vanderbilt had beaten Alabama early in the conference season to stay undefeated, it was a really good win. I was at the game. Hansbrough was kind of raining on the parade. He goes, you know what? I still am not a big believer in Vanderbilt. And he correctly pointed out some of the question marks about their roster. Their lack of size up front. They can get in some foul trouble. He was thinking they were punching above their weight a little bit, and that's sort of turned out to be true. And, of course, as you mentioned, there's some reasons for that. They lost Duke Miles for a while. He played hurt for a while. Then he missed some time. He's hopefully got some good basketball in front of him with the season now at the most important time of the year. Hopefully he's feeling healthy and fresh. And then, of course, they lost Frankie Collins too. But Derek and I were talking about this earlier in the week. They are who they are, right? I think you watch them, you know what you're getting. They're a team that you can hurt on the offensive boards, and if they play Tennessee tomorrow, that would be the number one stat to look at. Offensive rebounds, second chance points, because Tennessee is the best offensive rebounding team in the country. And that is always a challenge, even for just a good offensive rebounding team for Vanderbilt. And it's a nightly issue trying to manage fouls and stay out of foul trouble. So they've got their flaws, which have been well pointed out. But what they are is a good shot-making team that when they are feeling good, it's contagious, and they can really, be very efficient. They're well coached, and they can out-skill you on most nights, and that's how they've won 24 games. And I think they lost a little bit of the mojo in there, but let's hope it's due to rebound. And there's nobody that embodies that more than Tyler Nickel, who couldn't miss a shot for weeks, and it's been a little tougher for him down the stretch. So if he's due to rebound, which I think you could argue he might be, and if Miles can give you his best, maybe they can get back to that team that has so many weapons it's really hard to cover them all.
By my math, if I recall correctly, Tyler Nickel has shot 10 for 44 from three over the past 6 games. That's under 25% from three. That's something that I'm hoping he can correct during this tournament. And Derek,
it's one of those math things too, quickly, Adam, that I think when you're shooting close to 50% from three, it's just awfully hard to sustain that for a whole season. So I think it was a little bit of a regression it's just due even for the best shooters. But he's dipped so far down. Now he's close to 40%. This is a legit slump that you have to hope the opposite happens now, that he's too good of a shooter to stay at that percentage.
And Derek, one thing we do know about the NCAA tournament, stars are made, and there have been so many performances where one player has carried his team, maybe not all of the way, but a far enough way, I guess you could say. Some of the best examples, Kemba Walker with UConn, Carmelo Anthony with Syracuse, and not to say that Tyler Tanner will be Kemba Walker or Carmelo Anthony. But Tyler Tanner has been, I think, one of the best stories in college basketball this season. Obviously, I was familiar with his game watching Vanderbilt last season, but I think a lot of people around the country got to know Tyler Tanner this season. And I see him as a player who can make a shot when the Commodores really need one. And that is a weapon that teams that go far in the NCAA tournament must have.
Yeah, you got to have a shot maker. You got to have a guy that's, when seconds are running down and you need a big basket, he has to be able to come up with the basket. And Tyler Tanner has been able to do that, especially when Duke Miles was down, and he pretty much carried the team from an offensive standpoint and being the single, ball handler out there. And I think that's maybe contributed to his, his slump as far as shooting from the outside, in particular the 3-point range. But I don't even think it's so much about Tyler Tanner moving forward, because if you look back at this team, when they played extremely well, Nickel was the guy that, made teams. He was able to help stretch the floor for Vanderbilt. And lately, he just hasn't been shooting well from the outside. If you're going to make a run in the NCAA tournament, you got to have an outside knockdown shooter. And Nickel was that for the Vanderbilt Commodores for the first half of the season, and he just seemed to sort of tail off. So if they can get him shooting, close to that, what was he at, Willie? Was he at almost 50% from the three-point line?
He was right, very close to 49%, I think, before this slump that Adam just talked about started. He was very close to 50%. He was among the tops in the country.
Yeah, so if they can get him back to shooting, and again, it's not like he has to shoot like that. I mean, I'm not even asking him to shoot like that during the SEC tournament. It would be great. But if he can shoot like that for a 4-game stretch in March Madness, then that will give them, an opportunity to go far in the tournament. If he doesn't, then it's going to be hard for guys like Tyler Chandler to get his shot off, because teams are going to start collapsing down on him. They're going to, and we saw it, toward the latter part of the season, they're going to play him 90 feet, and they're going to force him to exert energy, bringing the ball up. So it's going to be critical that guys like Nickel, they start hitting from the 3-point line. Duke Miles, he don't get himself into foul trouble. And that's another thing. As good as they play defense, they are very active with their hands. They pay the passing lanes very well. They find themselves in foul trouble too much. And if you want to go far in the tournament, your key guys can't get into foul trouble, especially when you only can go really 7 deep. So they don't have that much of a bench, or they don't utilize their bench much. So they can't have, McLaughlin and Miles getting into foul trouble, because then they can't do the things that they want to do from an offensive standpoint, nor from a defensive standpoint, and that is the most important part.
Willie, you wanted to make a point about the seeding.
Yeah, you brought this up at the beginning of the discussion. By the way, Tennessee just hit a couple of free throws to go up 68-61 with 55 seconds left against Auburn. So
dang it, my conspiracy theory is gone.
Well, and now it might lead to it depends on what happens around the country. If there's another so-called bid thief or two, Auburn
first 4 out, according to Joe Lenardi on the big screen here. So
karma is a with Bruce Pearl and the discussion, because Miami is a thief. Miami is going to be in. Right, Miami will have 31-1. They're not going to be left out of the tournament. So even though Bruce Pearl was saying Auburn is better than Miami, which maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't. But it doesn't look good for Auburn at this moment. But the seed part of this for Vanderbilt and Tennessee, I think it could, and I don't know how the committee views these games these days. The good part about getting the double bye for Vanderbilt is they're not going to get a bad loss in the SEC tournament. So I don't think their seed will drop, likely. I think they would be a solid 5. But you could maybe look at that Tennessee-Vanderbilt game and say the winner is a 4 and the loser stays at 5, or they both could be 5s. True?
That is a good point. By the way, most losses by at-large NCAA team, 15. So Auburn currently 17-15. They're about to be 17-16. Right? Vanderbilt was one of those teams that made it as an at-large.
That was the Luke Cornett Vanderbilt teams with Bryce Drew. Same formula. Extremely difficult schedule with a lot of good wins.
So Tennessee is barring a miracle here from Auburn. Tennessee is about to win. The Volunteers are at the free throw line, 68-62 with 36.5 seconds left. So quickly, Willie, let's preview tomorrow's expected matchup between Tennessee and Vanderbilt. The two teams split the series in the regular season. Both teams won on the road. Correct me if I'm wrong here. The game here was Duke Miles' first game back from injury. The game in Knoxville, Nate Ament did not play because of the high ankle sprain. But you'll have Miles in the game tomorrow. Ament came back today, had a big game for the Vols, 27 points. So what do you expect of that dynamic in the game tomorrow?
I'm at 27 points, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks. So he doesn't seem to be bothered by the high ankle sprain.
I guess not.
Pretty good return to the lineup.
It's because the Vols practiced at Memorial Gym. That's exactly
Who knows what intel they got over there while they were in there? Did they have spies going up and down? I don't know, but I'm sure there's some interesting stories that have been told over the years of teams using other teams' facilities. But Vanderbilt did a really good job on Ament in Nashville. Ament hit the big shot at the end of the game. It was about as tough a shot as you could make. And I think it was his only maybe one of two-point field goals he made the whole afternoon. They did an excellent job on him. We've talked about Chandler Bing, who has emerged as a really big-time defensive weapon, and he played an excellent offensive game in Knoxville as well. So I think Bing will be an important guy in tomorrow's game. I think he'll get a lot of assignments against Ament. And then, as we mentioned, offensive rebounding will be enormous in that game. And Tennessee, I think, is very good. Hard-nosed defense. I think they've guarded Vanderbilt well. I was very pleased with Vanderbilt's ability to score in Knoxville, because I thought Tennessee's defense at Memorial Gym was the best I saw any team guard Vanderbilt all year long. That includes Florida.
Well, you're right about the offensive rebounds. They're basically offensive rebounds 2-1. I think Vandy had a total of 14 offensive rebounds in the two games, and UT had a total, I think, like 32 offensive rebounds. So if you're gonna beat Tennessee, especially with a man out there, you can't allow them to get offensive rebounds.
615-737-1025. Tennessee running down the clock. The Vols will win 72-62 to advance to the next round in the SEC tournament. Tennessee versus Vanderbilt tomorrow, a 2:30 p.m. tip-off at Bridgestone Arena. That's the second of the 4 games scheduled tomorrow. Opening the quarterfinals, Kentucky versus Florida. So Kentucky versus Florida, Tennessee versus Vanderbilt in the first half of the quarterfinals tomorrow in the SEC
tough
tournament.
Ticket. That's
tough
going to be a
ticket
tough
indeed.
ticket.
We will talk more SEC tournament with our friend Joe Rexroad, who is at Bridgestone Arena later in the program. 615-737-1025. By the way, our SEC men's basketball coverage is presented by Thompson Machinery, City Auto of Murfreesboro, Maple Street Biscuit Company, Crown Royal, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, in the Metro Nashville Police Department. But coming up next, as we prepare to talk with our friend Elliotte Friedman at the top of the hour, I saw an interesting report the other day from one of Elliotte Friedman's fellow insiders regarding an important Predators player. And we will discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025. The Game.
If you've injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. But Law Tigers fights to get you the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. Look, they understand how much your bike gear is worth to you, so they will help you get it all repaired, or better yet, replaced. So call 1-800 Law Tigers or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Freeman and Fusion, and you can find them in Nashville, located at 2126 21st Street South. And don't forget, go to predatorsbike.com to enter to win a custom Nashville Predator Indian motorcycle signed by the entire team, courtesy of Law Tigers in Music City, Indiana. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Derek and I are live at Chiefs at 200 Broadway, the intersection of Broadway and 2nd Avenue. Now that the first half of the day at the SEC tournament is complete, come on down and hang out with us. Joe Rexrode, who has been living at Bridgestone Arena since yesterday, covering the SEC tournament, will join us at 5:20 to break down.
Did they get him one of those green rooms? Did they give him like a sleeping bag and a mattress, pillow, so he actually could? Because Joe's the kind of guy. I think he is a gym rat at heart, and I think if you actually gave him the opportunity, would you like to live at Bridgestone Arena this week? I think he might do it.
We'll have to ask him that when he comes on. I did hear him this morning on Robbie and Rexrode complaining about all of the junk that he ate yesterday during the SEC tournament after trying to take care of himself in the month of February. So we'll see.
Complaining. He shouldn't have ate it.
Well, it
shouldn't have consumed it.
Tough. It's tough.
Derek, you don't understand this. Derek, you don't understand
I know
this
about radio,
as a
but
finely tuned professional athlete.
I know
But
I
if
want
you
radio,
put free food in front of a sports writer,
yes,
it's going to be gone in a blink.
It
doesn't matter what it is.
It's moderations, man.
There are things that I would never eat out in the world that I have eaten just because they were available in a press box. I'm
with no charge.
Exactly. Free tastes pretty good. So we'll catch up with Rexrode. By the way,
I don't know what it is now, but I have done the SEC tournament thing. It's been a long time because since I've been doing my thing with the Predators, if the SEC tournament is in Nashville, it means I'm somewhere like Vancouver where I am right now. But I can remember the days where you go to 4 straight basketball games, and it is a long day. And, like, you're not leaving, so you got to eat what's there. So Golden Flake potato chips, Dr. Pepper. The league sponsors, they're constantly like unlimited, bottomless Dr. Pepper and those potato chips and whatever, the 2 different media meals. Like there's usually one before the first session and then before the second session. So it is definitely an all-day affair.
We'll catch up with Rexrode. We'll see if he is following his diet at 5:20. By the way, the games in the second half of the evening in the SEC tournament: Ole Miss versus Georgia at 6, Oklahoma versus Texas A&M at 8:30. The winner of Ole Miss and Georgia will take on Alabama. The winner of Oklahoma and Texas A&M will face Arkansas in the quarterfinals of the SEC tournament. We're going to have Elliotte Friedman on in about 10 minutes. We'll talk about what happened at the NHL trade deadline. But one of his fellow insiders, Willie, Pierre LeBrun of TSN and The Athletic, had a story the other day with the headline, "The NHL trade deadline may not have delivered, but it sets up a potentially explosive summer." And I was scrolling through the players he listed, and I stopped in my tracks when I saw the name Roman Josi. And here is what Pierre LeBrun wrote at The Athletic. Quote, "There are a lot of ifs in this conversation, but a leak source suggested keeping an eye on Josi this summer if the Predators under new management decide to deepen the rebuild and move on from the likes of Ryan O'Reilly, Steven Stamkos, and Jonathan Marchessault. I think if those 3 are dealt, or even 2 of them, Josi and his agent Judd Moldaver would probably want to have a conversation with the Predators about the organization's direction. He has 2 more years on his deal at a $9.095 million AAV with a full no move through next season. Josi is as loyal as they come and has been a Predator for life. So the most likely scenario is that he stays put. Still, it was suggested to me to keep an eye on it. As hard as it is to even think of Josi in another uniform, I actually think this has more of a chance of happening than one might imagine," end quote. And as Pierre LeBrun wrote there are a lot of ifs in this conversation, but the fact that he was even listed on this story, Willie, made me cock my eyebrow.
Look, Pierre LeBrun is one of the best writers in the NHL. Best reporters, no question. We are biased for Elliotte because he comes on our show. They're both dynamite. They're both great. that article, absolutely, I was shocked. The one thing that you could say is the next general manager, we don't know who that person is. So they may have a totally different vision than what sits here today. But I keep coming back to this. These guys, and I'll even include Stamkos and O'Reilly, they want to stay here. They love playing for Nashville. So this whole thing about now they're going to then sweep the decks over the summer, I don't know. But maybe they will to a degree. But with Yossi, I'll believe that when I see it. I do not believe that would happen under any circumstances. Not this summer. Zero.
But
now I don't have the source that he's got. Like his job is to get these sources. So I don't know who's telling that. I just know Roman Yossi. I've known him for a long time. I don't think he wants to go anywhere.
But you can't say that it's not out of the realm of possibility because
you got to understand that out of the realm of the possibility.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that you went from Poyle to Barry, a guy that drafted him or traded for him, to a guy that coached him, and he grew as a player under Barry. So there was no way that he was going anywhere. But but a new GM coming in with no history with him or anybody else, he may look to go in another direction. If indeed, like you said, if you want to go that deep as far as redoing this whole roster rebuild, that would technically be a rebuild if you did something like that.
Oh, it would be a full scale rebuild if Roman Yossi
if we
wasn't a part of it.
Then you'd be signing up for that 5 to 7 year overhaul plan, right? Where you're going to be bad for a long time. And so buckle up. You'll get the high picks, but you're going to stink for at least 5 years. I don't know if the next GM has that vision. But remember, too, Roman Yossi has the full no trade clause. He controls that. He would have to go to them and say, well, if you're going to do that, I'm getting out. I just remember my central question as the deadline approached, Adam, and you and I debated this on Preds Insiders and on our show many times, is what do you decide to do at the trade deadline? The central question is, what do you want your team to look like next year and the year after? When you have guys who are having very good seasons that are in the mid-30s, right? Yossi, Stamkos, O'Reilly. Forsberg's in his low 30s, but he's in his 30s, right? They're getting a high percentage of goals, close to 80%. It's gone down because the youth guys really gave them a big boost the other day, and that's going to be something to watch. But they're getting about 75% of their goals from guys in their 30s. So they're still good, is my point. And so what's your vision for next year? So we don't know. And that will be a question for the next general manager.
615-737-1025. Perhaps we can ask this question to Sportsnet's Elliotte Friedman. Coming up next, we'll talk to Elliotte about what the Predators did and didn't do at the NHL trade deadline and more. 615-737-1025. Derek and I are live at Chiefs 200 Broadway. Willie Donick is in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And, of course, David James is back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. D-Mace, Vingan and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan and David Janes here with you. Derek and I are live at Chiefs 200 Broadway at the intersection of 2nd Avenue and Broadway. So come on out and see us during the break in action at the SEC tournament. Let's go to our phone line driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Elliotte Friedman, Sportsnet NHL Insider, who is presented by Old National Bank. Get old. Elliotte, I am thinking of you because I know how much you love Broadway. It is a beautiful March day here, and we are on Broadway, and we miss you, and we wish you were here.
You know, I just heard that you guys are having a beautiful day. I'm in New York today taping some interviews, and the weather is bad here, and it's bad in Toronto, and I hate you all.
We know you don't actually mean that, but I understand.
No,
I understand why you would be upset. So, Elliotte, the Predators held on to their top players at the trade deadline last week, including Ryan O'Reilly. Barry Trotz made it sound like he received fair offers for O'Reilly. Do you have a sense of what the Predators were offered for Ryan O'Reilly?
I'll say this. I do think that they were given things that made them think. It was a very confusing couple of days, I'll say, around O'Reilly. Just for me on the outside, I had heard that he was not getting traded, and then I heard there was a chance he could get traded, and then that went back to he is not getting traded. So, put it this way, I think teams tried to get in there. I think there were teams who were asking, what would it take for this to be considered? But I believe at the end of the day, Ryan O'Reilly said, I would like to stay and try to get this team in the playoffs. I believe that was his preference. I'll just say this. The fact that it went from not getting traded to could get traded to going back and then not getting traded, I think there's somebody out there who tried to make it worth the Predators' while. What specifically that was, I can't tell you, Adam. I haven't been able to nail down the team. I do have some suspicions, but I haven't been able to nail down the team. I just think at the end of the day, O'Reilly made it clear that he wanted to stay on a potential playoff team. And I think ultimately the Predators felt they would live up to their word and not ask him.
I wondered personally, Elliotte, if a package similar to the one that the Flames received for Nazem Kadri or the Blues received for Braden Shen could be in the ballpark for O'Reilly.
I would say that it's reasonable for you to think that, but I can't prove it. That's just the best way I can answer. I don't think it's wrong for you to wonder if that could occur. But like I said, I can't sit here right now and tell you that that was on the table for Nashville. Like I heard, because one of the things I heard, Adam, was that O'Reilly was adamant he did not want to go.
So, Elliotte, the one thing that we've been talking a lot about here regarding Ryan O'Reilly is this, I believe you referred to it in an article on Sportsnet.ca last week as a verbal no-move clause. Yes. That he does not have that protection built into his contract, but Barry Trotz is treating him as such. Do you know of other examples of players who have this sort of handshake agreement that Trotz and O'Reilly have?
You know, I'll tell you, very early in my career, I can't remember if it was 1993 or 1994, but it was when I first left university and got into the business. I was in a situation in Toronto where a Hall of Fame player named Mike Gartner was traded away by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he went wild. And he said, I had a verbal arrangement with the Maple Leafs that they could not trade me, and the Maple Leafs still did it anyway. And he was adamant. And the Maple Leafs basically, the GM at the time was Cliff Fletcher, who was one of nicest people in the business I ever dealt with. And I don't remember what Fletcher's answer at the time. Like, he didn't exactly deny it. But Gartner was adamant that he had been traded despite a verbal promise. And like, I have seen this before. I have seen it disputed before. And, you know, one of the things I've kind of wondered, to be honest, and this is just my personal opinion, Adam, is if the new owner of the team is kind of like, okay, just explain to me what exactly we have here, because there's nothing on paper that says he's got a no trade clause or a no move clause.
I am wondering too, Elliotte, if the new GM honors that agreement with Ryan O'Reilly and if this is something that the team and player revisit in the summertime.
It might be. I mean, the one thing I've learned over time is that these things, even if you have something on paper, Adam, you revisit them over time. Like, circumstances change, things change. Like, you know, one of the things we discussed in our hit last week was the shell shock nature of the team. You know, when McCarron and Smith were traded, one like right before a game and one basically during a game. And, you know, the players were shocked. And I think that there were probably some of them who have even written no move clauses who were at that time saying, what exactly is going on here? I think in the off season, if the Predators decide that they're going to tear it down or rebuild a bit, and I do believe, from what I'm hearing about the new owner, Bill Haslam, he's not necessarily against this idea, and we'll see what the new GM says. He's not against the idea. Then I could see more players willing to revisit their situations, including guys who have written ones. So yes, I do think it's possible this will become a conversation in the off season. But to this point, I believe O'Reilly and his representatives, and his agent is a guy by the name of Pat Morris, who is, and I say this with respect, no shrinking violet. I think they have made it very clear that a promise was made, and to this point, they expect it to be lived up to.
Elliotte, let me ask you about the Western Conference wildcard race, because no team seems to want to claim that second spot. Right? Seattle at 67 points, 4-6 in its past 10. Los Angeles, which recently made a coaching change, at 67 points, 7 losses in 10 games. San Jose at 66 points, 7 losses in 10 games. The Predators at 66 points, 6 losses in 10 games. So when you look at those 4 teams, if you had to handicap the race for the second wild card spot, which team are you putting on top?
Well, you know, it's even worse for me, I'll say, because I was thinking that Winnipeg, with the gold medal hero, might get in. And the day I said that, they got outshot like 35-12 by Anaheim, and they lost. And people were texting at me like, genius prediction there, Mr. Brilliant. You know, I'll say this. I always, at this time of year, I always look for the team that has the best goaltending. The best. And right now, it's probably your guy. Now, I haven't checked schedules, but I was with the Kings today because I was doing a piece on Anze Kopitar, who's retiring at the end of this year. The Kings play Vancouver 3 times. Winnipeg apparently plays Colorado 3 times. Like, that's advantage Kings. I would say this. You know, the Kraken have had really good goaltending most of the year. They don't score very much, but they have you guys and the Kraken have the best goaltending. I think the Kings are probably the best team. Like, if I had to handicap someone, I'd probably say them. But their goaltending hasn't been very good. And if goaltending truly does matter, you and the Kraken have the best.
I think that the notable thing about Nashville's schedule is the number of head-to-head games Nashville has against these teams that we're talking about. They haven't played the Sharks yet this entire year. So they have 3 matchups with San Jose, 2 of them in Nashville. They have 2 games at LA. They just played Seattle and won. They've got Seattle in their next home game head-to-head, and they go to Winnipeg and Edmonton on this trip that they're on right now. So that's big.
No
they only have They
No
only have one
excuses.
game. Right. They certainly believe internally in that locker room, even after all of the drama, that they can make it. And Ryan O'Reilly is at the forefront, willing to tell everybody that on the record, off the record, whatever. And then the other notable,
if he doesn't
Elliotte,
tell it to them, if he doesn't tell it to them, Willie, he'll sing it to them.
yes, he is quite the player. He's got his guitar on this road trip, as he always does. The other notable, I think, is they only have one game left against the big three in the division. They're done
That'll
with Colorado, done with Dallas, and they have one home game left with Minnesota, and they've played 3 Razor's Edge overtime games against Minnesota. So I think that's the other thing I would note on the schedule.
Yeah, it's these are all really good points. I mean, like I said, I thought Saros was excellent overseas. I think he's been a really good player all year, and I think that's one of the reasons if I was the Predators, then I would be confident of my chances because of him.
Elliotte, one thing that we discussed, Adam and I went at it pretty hard yesterday. My main point about, because Barry Trotz's quote was, they didn't knock my socks off with the trade offers from O'Reilly. And you correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see anybody really trade a top prospect for any of the guys that got dealt at the deadline. If we use the example, Philip Forsberg, right? Philip Forsberg for Martin Erat is probably one of the 2 or 3, maybe the best trades that they ever made that just swung the franchise in a hurry. Yeah. But it seems like teams are just really reluctant now because it's too hard to get those guys. They just don't trade them maybe like they used to. Was there a guy of that caliber traded at all at the deadline?
Not hugely. Like there were a lot of like picks. Like Braden Shen went for picks. Braden Shen went for picks. There was Nazem Kadri went for an interesting prospect, but that prospect was not going to sign in Utah. Like Utah has a couple of really elite prospects, and they didn't trade them. As a matter of fact, it infuriated some of the people they were talking to that Utah wouldn't even consider some of these players. So, Calgary probably got like a B prospect, a kid who has a center from Cornell who has a chance to be pretty good, but he wasn't, one of their best players. I would agree with you that I think a lot of the guys who got these teams are happy to trade picks if they got the right guy, but I would agree with you, like a lot of the top prospects weren't there. I mean, it's interesting. Like I watched Barry's press conference. I know he took some heat for it, but like the one thing I would say about this too, and I think this is important to remember, just because you didn't do it now doesn't mean you can't do it in the summer. And in the summer, it's going to be people are going to have more time to think. There's going to be more options available for teams. The cap is going up. There's going to be a lot more space for people to do things. And, I'll say this, like the one thing I've learned to understand about the players I cover is that they really don't understand giving up when they have a chance to make the playoffs. I think that we on the outside can say, hey, like they're going to go in the playoffs and they play Colorado, they're probably going to lose in 4 games. That's the way fans and media look at it. But players don't think like that. Players think like we're going to get in and we could once we get in, who knows what can happen? Maybe we pull the upset. And I think that, and sometimes I think we forget that. Like Ryan O'Reilly definitely thinks like that. I don't think they ever went to Stamkos with anything. I believe he said that, and I've heard the same. But I think that guys like Stamkos, it's hard for them in the middle of the year when they're battling for the playoffs to say, let's give up. That's why they were so shocked that night of the 2 trades. So, I think the one thing about Trotz is I think he knows that whether it's him or it's somebody else, maybe they didn't take apart the nucleus right now, but they could still if they want to this summer. And That's why I don't get. I know some Predators fans were upset about the lack of movement at the deadline. I still think for your team, the biggest questions are going to be this summer. And that is going to be the true determining factor of where this team is going. Because I suspect that your new owner is not afraid of a rebuild, but I don't think we're really going to know the truth about that until June.
And we don't know who the GM is going to be and how that person's going to feel. So that's an X factor as well.
I'll say this. I think you guys are starting to move along there. I think you guys are starting to do interviews. I've heard a lot about people who are current, like assistant general managers on other teams. I promised you I would get to work on that this week. And like, I don't like to lie to the great people of Nashville. And, I've heard that you guys are starting to talk, especially some AGMs on other teams. And it doesn't make me think 100% that's the direction you're going in there. But I think it's interesting that, we've talked about like some of the big names, the Brendan Shanahans of the world. I've heard you're talking to some guys who have some experience in other front offices, other teams who've been successful. And the fact that you're at least talking to those people tell me it's not impossible you go down that route.
Well, I thought of one thing today that was notable. Brett Peterson, not to be confused with our own beloved Brent Peterson, who legendary assistant coach and icon of the franchise. But Brett Peterson was named the USA GM, I think, for the World Championships. You had mentioned his name. Yeah, you had named his. You put his name out there, I think, at the very beginning, where you're just kind of throwing stuff when the story was very fresh. Is he a guy that would be maybe fitting that profile you're talking about?
I would be surprised if he wasn't on Nashville's radar. I would be. It would be very surprising to me. When I heard this week that those were the kinds of people that Nashville was reaching out and asking permission to, it would be surprising to me if he was not somebody on the Predators' radar. Look, they've won 2 Stanley Cup championships in a row. They've been to 3 consecutive finals. They're not going to make the playoffs this year, but that's simply because they're out of gas. I think it would be crazy if the Predators didn't at least want to talk to him and say, hey, what did you learn from your time that maybe you could bring to us? So I absolutely think that Brett would be on your radar. Yes.
Elliotte, one more before we let you go. Ed, I saw the contract for Nick Schmaltz yesterday, who is 30 years old, and he's having a really good year. And Utah's having a good year. And I can see the exuberance for the Mammoth. They want to build something, and it's time to lock down guys. Like if he was playing for Arizona, I think we both know he would have been probably gone. It's a different situation. But 8 times 8 for a player like him, it puts in perspective to me when people say, well, look at some of these bad contracts these teams have. Don't we have to almost delineate what happened before the cap went up so drastically and after? Because the new market almost takes contracts like a Brady Shea or a UC Soros, a Ryan O'Reilly, a Steven Stamkos. It kind of puts it in a different line because the cap is so much bigger.
Well, I think, Willie, that actually players who have term are going to be more valuable. Like for a long time, when Stamkos was struggling earlier this year and you were looking at him for 2.5 years at $8 million, I bet you there were some people saying, "Oh, that's a tough one to handle." I think it's going to be less now of a problem. Like especially the way he's finished the year and how good he's looked and how hard he's played. If you think that if you're like, I think I've heard that players who have term are going to be even more valuable because these new contracts are going to be going. Like Schmaltz, his number actually came in lower than I thought it was going to be, because I actually thought he was going to sign for less term. I know Utah was a little concerned about signing him for 8 years at age 30, but he took some money off his average annual salary and got the term. So, I think that's I think Utah's probably pretty happy with that contract at that number. But I think the players like Stamkos who have 2 years left and any other player that's got term, I think they're going to become more attractive because I think people are terrified of some of these teams are terrified of where this cap is going.
Elliotte Friedman, Sportsnet NHL Insider, has been our guest on D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick. He joins us every Thursday and is presented by Old National Bank. Get old. Elliotte, always a pleasure. Have a safe trip home, and we'll talk next week.
All right, guys. I hope we finally get some of that good weather.
Yes. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much.
Take care.
615-737-1025. Before we get to Joe Rexrode, some breaking NFL news. Kyler Murray signing a one-year deal with the Minnesota Vikings. He is owed $36.8 million from Arizona, so his contract with the Vikings will be for the veteran league minimum. So Kyler Murray going 1 year, going to the Kevin O'Connell rehabilitation program for quarterbacks in Minnesota. Now he's with J.J. McCarthy, and who the hell knows what's going to happen with J.J. McCarthy. But Kyler Murray joining the Minnesota Vikings, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Joe Rexrode, live from Bridgestone Arena. He's been covering the SEC tournament. We'll catch up with him next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, 1025 The Game.
All right, let's talk loan pronto. If you have been getting chewed up every month with high interest debt, if you've got a mortgage that's over 6% or credit card bills and or car loans, it might even be higher than that, 10%, 20% even. Check out Loan Pronto and their solution to this. They're going to put you in a better spot with their all-in home refi. You've been waiting on this. One fast, easy solution to lock in the lowest rate in 3 years and then wipe out the nasty loans. For example, one homeowner got their APR down to 4.99%. They paid off over $80,000 in high interest loans, all in one shot. They saved over $2,000 a month in the process. So the all-in refi from Loan Pronto is super fast, super cheap, no hard credit pull up front, often no appraisal, and you can skip your next 2 house payments. So if that sounds good to you, you need to check this out. Call and ask Loan Pronto about the all-in refi. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781. Visit NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. And if it's Creed, it can only be one man. Our very own Joe Rexroad on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Rexroad has been covering the SEC tournament, basically living at Bridgestone Arena. Hi, Joe. How are you?
Joe, I have a did you know? Joe, I have a did you know about Scott Stapp. Did you know that he took a visit as a potential Vanderbilt baseball recruit back when I was playing ball for the Commodores? Did you know that?
I did. No, did you? I did not know that. Did you take him out in the town?
I did not. I was not the lead guy, but I did meet him that night. But it just I don't remember where he ended up. But I didn't think anything of it for all those years. And then one of my buddies, one of my teammates, like, we had that guy. He was there. I was like, that was him. That was quite the story.
Hey Rex, you know why Willie didn't take him? Because Willie's not the cool one.
Hey, I'll have you know, Derek, there's only one guy that I didn't get when I was assigned the duty as the basketball/baseball. There's only one guy I didn't get. He was from my hometown of Orlando, Florida, Mark Bellhorn, who I grew up with. And he went to Auburn instead, and he played second base for the 04 Red Sox, who won the World Series. So that's the only guy I didn't get. I got Billy McCaffrey. I take credit for him. Not solely, but I was part of the team.
That's pretty good. I think society should be mad at you, Willie, for not telling Scott Stapp to never join a band, please, ever in your life.
Rexroad, before we get to the basketball, I just have to ask you this question because I heard you this morning. Have you been behaving yourself on the buffet so far today?
Yeah, I have had no desserts, so I think that's good. I have not hit the starch. I have had some pork tenderloin, some chicken fingers. So, not the healthiest, but I did have a salad.
Okay.
So far, not bad. Not bad.
Some greens are good. So let's talk about the teams you've been watching so far today. Let's start with Kentucky. Kentucky wins again. The Wildcats defeat Missouri. Kentucky faces Florida tomorrow in what should be an entertaining game. Joe, Kentucky may be the most confounding team in the country to me as March Madness approaches. They certainly have the talent to do some damage, but the Wildcats have been wildly inconsistent. So based on what you've seen from Kentucky so far in this tournament, what do you think their ceiling is in the Big Dance?
I think they're like a Sweet 16. Like, I'd be surprised if we see that team in a regional final. And you're right, they're talented, but let's remember their point guard Jalen Lowe is out for the year. Their big guy, who is really going to be their main interior piece, Jaden Quayton's, coming up the ACL, and he barely played this year. The game he played against St. John's, and they win that game. They looked a lot different. He would have changed them defensively a lot. So they're talented, but Denzel Aberdeen is a fine player, and Colin Chandler can hit shots. Obviously, Otega Owe is a very dynamic player. But I don't think that I don't necessarily, when I watch them, I don't think I'm looking at some mega talented team that's underachieving. I just think that they're a good team. They're like a low top 25 kind of team. So I think if they make the Sweet 16, they'll be doing pretty well.
Let's talk about the second game. Tennessee comes back to defeat Auburn 72-62. I know that you've been doing your bracket watch on The Athletic. I would love to know what you think the fate of Auburn will be. But before you tell us that, I want to ask you about Nate Ament, who returned to action today, 27 points for the Vols. As you know full well, there have been so many examples of players taking teams on their backs and dragging them to a national title or close to a national title. I'm thinking of Kemba Walker. I'm thinking of Carmelo Anthony. Is Ament the type of talent who can do that for the Vols?
I don't think so. Now, if he were back next year after a year in the weight room and maybe they were a little bit better in some places, then yes, but of course he's not going to be here. So he's really good. But you're talking like Carmelo and Kemba Walker. You're talking about clearly that's like the best player in the country, or clearly at least like a first team All-American. Ament has gotten a lot better, and he was terrific today, especially when you consider coming off the injury. I think that he can elevate them past maybe, where they might end up. Obviously, he's their best player, but I watch them today a lot, and you watch Tennessee, and you can just, especially offensively, and you're just like, man, you're underwhelmed. I mean, it's basically Jacoby Gillespie or Amen is going to score for them. So, I mean, they are a limited offensive team, and I kind of look at them the same way as Kentucky. Like, I think a Sweet 16 would be a pretty good outcome. Could he absolutely go nuts and get them close to the first Final Four in school history? I mean, it's crazy to think that this particular Tennessee team would be the one to make history, because we've seen some much better Tennessee teams in recent years. But he is a special talent. So if we're talking red hot from outside and really aggressive putting the ball on the floor, then maybe he can get them a round or two beyond what I think is probably their ceiling, which is the Sweet 16.
Now, Rex, we talk about Tennessee, and obviously you just explained about Kentucky. Another team, Arkansas, led by Darius Acuff. I mean, they got a hell of a three-guard combination. All of their guards are averaging over 10 points per game. But are they like Kentucky in regards to, hey, if this team goes on a run, or if Acuff, he can be one of those type of guys that can kind of lead you through a tournament?
Oh, no question. Now, I have a very different answer for Arkansas. Mace. In fact, obviously Florida is a Final Four, contender, maybe even a favorite at this point. To me, the other team in this league that I really could see in Indianapolis is Arkansas. I mean, Acuff is unbelievable. Like, Acuff it's kind of, because of this freshman class, he's kind of been overshadowed more than he should have been. But if anybody's been watching him closely, he's he's going to be a great player in the NBA. He's a great player now. And if you look at the rest of the talent they have, maybe in the interior, they haven't been consistent enough or as good as they need to be. But I still think they have plenty of talent everywhere. And if they put it together, they are a scary 4 or 5 in the NCAA tournament. Very scary.
Yeah, if they could get Javon Brazel to continue to play the way he has been playing. I mean, they got a 4-man rotation with those 4 guys that can absolutely, like you said, they can catch fire and they can lead this team to potentially a national championship. Now, Vanderbilt, looking at what they have been able to do, Willie and I, and as well as Adam, but Willie and I have really been honing in on Vanderbilt and some of the pros and the cons. I think they do an excellent job at playing defense. I do think they do an excellent job at protecting the passing lanes, but they always find themselves in foul trouble. What is it that this team need to do in order to make a big run?
Yeah, I mean, there's some matchups that I think are just tough for them, and it's, when you play a big team with who can rotate a lot of bigs in there, and especially aggressive bigs, I think that's where, you can see that foul trouble, and you can see their lack of depth up front can bite them a little bit. But I think with Vanderbilt, Duke Miles, obviously they had to have him back, and it hasn't been like immediately snap your fingers really good. I feel like although he's a guy who gets, like you said, gets in the passing lane, he creates havoc. He can also kind of get lost off the ball sometimes. But it seems to me, I thought in the last time out that they looked more like early season Vanderbilt, and it's gonna be those two guys playing off each other, driving the ball, shooting the ball. Tanner and Miles I'm talking about, but then also obviously they have to get nickel shots, right? Teams have basically, a lot of teams in the back half of the SEC schedule have just, you can tell the number one thing is that he does not breathe out there. He does not, we are there on the catch, and I think it's hurt him and hurt his confidence some. And if they can get him some clean looks, and sometimes you get away from your conference teams and all of a sudden some of the stuff you run works better, and if they can do that, I really think that they can be very dangerous.
Joe Rexroad is with us from The Athletic, and of course, Robbie and Joe in the morning with their Robbie and Rexroad great morning show. Joe, Derek and I, the three of us have also discussed the emergence of Chandler Bing as the season's gone along.
Yeah,
he's still not a finished product, but Mark Byington has noted how young he is. Even he's got a big body, but he's a true freshman. He's the guy that often is getting the assignment on the other team's best player. I would expect him to go head-to-head with Ament a lot tomorrow. But I think he's a huge X factor, especially if he can have the kind of game he had in Knoxville and chip in some offensively.
Yeah, no question. Well, it's funny because Mark Byington was out there today watching Tennessee Auburn, and I was chatting with him a little bit. We talked about that. Chandler Bing was a guy who they probably thought like next year he'd be a key guy, but would he even play this year? Or if he played, would he play much? And then, even early on, it was like, yeah, he's going to have to be out there. But you think about early season versus now, I think you're absolutely right. They figured out he can guard 1 through 4. And I think he's going to be, especially like a big athletic scoring wing, he is an ideal matchup, even as a freshman. Like you said, super strong. It's hard to believe he's a freshman. And yes, he can shoot the ball. He's got some skill too. It's almost like, last year Tanner, was a good player here and there. He'd score the ball a little bit. He didn't look to shoot a lot, but you can kind of see it coming. Like I could see him next year being really a dynamic player for this program. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I think he'll be on Name It tomorrow. And I think in the tournament, you're going to see, depending on matchups, he might have a game where he's playing high 20s, 30 minutes just because he is that switchable defender.
Joe, what's the big thing in the matchup with Kentucky and Florida tomorrow? Florida's gotten them twice, but of course we know what Kentucky is going to have atmosphere-wise. I got to feel like they're going to have a chance. They've got a little momentum, I guess, having won a couple of games here, but Florida is looking awfully tough. Do you give them a chance?
Yeah, but they're going to have to shoot the heck out of the basketball. They're going to, and sometimes, I think sometimes a team has an advantage in day 2 when they've played that one game, and then they're playing a team that has not played yet. But sometimes you get to day 3 and the legs get a little tired. I mean, they're going to have to shoot the heck out of the basketball. And frankly, they're going to need, Florida to not shoot well. And I think that's almost like everybody who plays Florida from now on. Like if Xavier Lee is going to hit threes and Clapshire off the bench is going to hit threes, Houck comes out and hits one. It's so hard to deal with them because we know what they have inside. So I'm with you though. I mean, the crowd should be great. They'll have the building, and you just have to fight them so hard to get a freaking rebound, And Kentucky has big bodies, but they just don't. I mean, we saw anybody who watched that game last week. Over time, you just could see it. Like they just weren't going to be able to hang with them. So they're going to have it's one of those like, you have to do those little things like not turn it over and stuff like that. But like just an outside special day of shooting and more like early season Florida for them from outside.
All right, Joe, let's end where Adam started here with Auburn losing today and all of the fun theatrics of Bruce Pearl, Stephen Pearl, and Miami of Ohio, who lost earlier today to go 31-1. What do you think happens here?
Yeah, I'm going through my bracket for tomorrow right now, and I think that I'm going to have Auburn in and SMU out. It's really close, but I mean the numbers. There's a lot of metrics where they're just a little bit ahead of SMU, and so to me, I mean it's just an absolute no-brainer, right? I mean it's the Bruce Pearl Bowl, Miami of Ohio and Auburn and Dayton in the first 4 games.
You're in on that, okay? You say the committee will just do that, but they would never do that for TV purposes or drama purposes, would they?
Well, I mean, hey,
D-Mace wants to know. He's our conspiracy theorist. D-Mace loves this stuff.
Well, now listen, I mean, there's only 2 first 4 games, right, among the 11 seeds. So, I mean, it's a 50-50 proposition. I mean, why the heck not make that choice? Are you going to deny us what we want? Come on, committee. I'm all for this conspiracy.
Okay, here's the real question, though. Miami at 31-1. If I'm them, I'm saying you're going to put me in the first 4, really? 31-1?
Yeah, but Willie, I mean, here's the thing.
I'm just giving you their perspective. I'm not saying that's not the right thing, but you don't think they have a chance to be above that?
One of the softest schedules in the country.
Yeah, they have a chance, but I mean, half of their resume is incredibly subpar, right? I mean, the predictive metrics are terrible, and so now you have a loss. I think they have to be in the first 4, but yeah, maybe they won't. We'll see. They are a champion of the league in the regular season. If somebody wants to, talk about that with the committee. But yeah, to me, they're a first 4 team.
Joe Rexrode has been our guest on D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick. Of course, you can hear him every weekday from 6 to 9 a.m. on Robbie and Rexrode and read him at The Athletic. Joe, enjoy the rest of the SEC tournament. I know you'll be on the road for the NCAA tournament. Please behave yourself. We don't need any gout flare-ups while you're traveling.
Will do. I'm going to go get some salad right now. Thank you.
Yes, salad right now, Joe. Thank you, Joe.
See ya. Thanks.
615-737-1025. The Titans' new jersey reveal is a couple of hours away.
Mhm.
We have been sent a potential leak. Who knows if they're
Do we
real?
think it's real?
I hope it's not real.
Derek hopes it's not real, and we'll
I hope
discuss
it's not real.
coming
I hope
up
it's not
next.
real.
615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Thanks to Chiefs on Broadway for having us today. Derek and I will be at T-Line tomorrow, 106 Duluth Avenue in West Nashville. We will have a shortened program tomorrow. We will be preempted for Vanderbilt basketball, Tennessee versus Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament, approximately 2:30 p.m. tip-off at Bridgestone Arena. But just in a couple of hours, the Tennessee Titans will unveil their new uniforms. Caleb in Gallatin says, I'm not sure if this has been discussed, but are they not live streaming the jersey reveal? I have seen a bunch of Titans fans say that if you are not there in person, you won't be able to see anything until it gets posted on X or Instagram. Is that true, or is there going to be a place to watch? Unfortunately for you, Caleb, it is true. It will not be live streamed. The Titans are not live streaming it. I believe they are also asking reporters who are attending not to live stream it as well. So you'll have to see it on X. Also, someone in our YouTube chat mentioned that, funny, I have a Derek Mason red Titans jersey from about the year 2000.
Yeah.
So
we never wore them. Never wore 'em.
Maybe it was the one that was made for you.
Well, somebody decided to make up a whole bunch of jerseys that were red and navy, and we never wore them, but they sold them.
So it was brought to our attention that it appears, and I emphasize this word, it appears that the new uniforms have leaked on Reddit. And again, we will see them officially in a couple of hours. But Willie and Derek, based on this screenshot that was sent to us, how do you feel about these uniforms if these are indeed the actual uniforms? Derek doesn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I will learn if indeed these are. I will learn to like them, but at this moment, no.
I don't see any navy blue with these uniforms.
It doesn't resemble anything of the Tennessee Titans. It just doesn't, and that's just me. That's me, and maybe other people are going to say different, and players will say different. But if I'm being honest, it doesn't resemble anything. What I saw, which I hope it's not, it doesn't resemble anything of the Tennessee Titans.
Willie, what about you?
Well, I guess like my first reaction is always, is this real? Did somebody really get it? Or because it looks like it could be a true leak or whatever you want to call it. If that's true, I would describe it simply, it's an Oilers jersey, is what it looks like. It looks like the Oilers uniforms with the new logo.
Which is what we expected when the logo leaked a few weeks ago.
But who leaked it? Like, if this is indeed the jersey, it would have to have been purposely leaked.
Who knows what these sort of things?
Because it's like, if only you and your team knows what color these are, because not everybody in the building, I'm sure, knows what these jerseys look like. And there are only a handful of people outside the people that produce the jerseys. Isn't there something in your clause saying you can't reveal jerseys or anything else?
Well, Willie will appreciate this because, look, leaking is a part of the game. And last week at the NHL trade deadline, there was a big deal that did not come to fruition. The St. Louis Blues had agreed to trade defenseman Colton Parayko to the Buffalo Sabres, but Parayko had either a no-trade clause or a no-movement clause in his contract. He decided not to go to Buffalo, and the trade did not go through. But the Blues GM, Doug Armstrong, actually checked the phone records, text records, and email records of many of his employees to make sure that the leak didn't come from inside the building. He found out that nobody inside the building leaked the potential trade, but that's what happens.
He ain't checked the burner phone.
Jeez, yeah, that was a big story, no doubt, and that is a little extreme, I think, to start going through people's phones, but because there's still such a thing as journalism, and stuff does get out. There are people that dig for stories and get them. I like, we talked about the word clean, a clean looking uniform, not too busy with a lot of bells and whistles on the jersey. If it's what's leaked, again, it's a good traditional looking jersey, but it is exactly the Oilers uniforms from the days in Houston. But let's reserve judgment until we actually see what they
And
put
the
out
picture
there.
we're looking at has Cam Ward, Jeffrey Simmons, and Chim Dike. Cam Ward is wearing a white uniform with blue pants. Jeff Simmons is wearing a blue uniform with white pants, and Dike is wearing an all-white uniform. But it's clearly the Oiler blue. The word Titans has been, well, actually on the Navy one, it does say, excuse me, not the Navy one, the light blue one that Simmons is wearing, it does say Titans underneath the NFL logo. So that's interesting. The white ones say Tennessee. One texter says, I think they leaked them to see fan reaction. Well, that does happen sometimes. A trial balloon, as it were. But again, this event is happening in just a couple of hours. Derek Mason is all dressed up with somewhere to go. He's going to leave Chiefs and head up to the Pinnacle for this event. We will discuss the Titans uniforms tomorrow again. A shortened show for us because of Vanderbilt basketball. We will be on the air as soon as that game is over. Vanderbilt versus Tennessee, round 3 in the SEC tournament, a 2:30 p.m. tip-off, all coverage right here on 102.5 The Game. Predators versus Canucks tonight, puck drop at 9, pregame at 8, also right here on 102.5 The Game. We will talk to you, I would say, around 5 p.m. tomorrow for a shortened program on DVD.
Be loved, love your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that song? Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. See you tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Thereabouts.
On 102.5 The Game, and we will talk about the jersey reveal. Peace.